I hope that you're well. It's the 21st of January, and I thought it's been a while since I've gone over the map, released a video. It's been a while since I've done a lot. So what I really want to do here is go over the Western Sources deep state map and sort of show you the gains that Russia has made in Soledar on the east and is continuing to make, but also go over some of the things released recently that may start to turn the tide in that area with all the military packages being handed to Ukraine from the United States, NATO, and a bunch of countries all absolutely feeding in so much new equipment we have not seen for a while, like main battle tanks. So here we are at the deep state map. So we're looking at this area here, which is Soledar. And if we zoom out, we're looking right where the cursor is, and we zoom in. But this is, I've got it in on the 10th of January. That's about the time I last spoke about this region. I know I have spoken a lot about it, but on another person's show on their podcast, but not on here, for those who haven't seen that. So Soledar here, this has been absolutely fuming battle over the past 10, 11 days. And as you'll see us rolling through, and we believe that Russia's main objective here is to capture this small city of Bakhmut that will then really threaten the supply line all the way up into here, into Seversk, and the main region here, or main city, being Kramatorsk. But if we zoom in here on Soledar, because a lot of the Ukrainian sources are saying that some of it's lost, some of it's still under control, and I think that is propaganda. This Soledar has completely fallen, and you'll see the Western sources map here really start to confirm that, knowing that the Western sources map has a bias towards Ukraine success, and of course the Russian maps have a bias towards Russian success. That's why it can be very hard to get an idea of actually what's going on. But as we roll through on the 11th, 12th, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, this is where we really start seeing Soledar starting to fall. This is when they were deep within the salt mines in Soledar. So they're right on the outskirts now in the industrial zone on the 17th. So, 3 days ago. And from here we'll see 18, 19, 20. And as you can see, both on the north and south of Bakhmut, the Russians are pushing further west, starting to have some success, I guess, in potentially surrounding Bakhmut. But this region around it, this ground, is incredibly on the advantage of the Ukrainian side, as the Ukrainian guns, the artillery pieces, are in what they call defilade fire, which the guns can fire out, but it's very hard to then get those guns with typical artillery back, being on the back side of a hill. But Russia's Wagner Group, as we know, which is bolstered at the moment by Russian criminals that have pulled out of jail, and you can either fight for us or back in the slammer, they have taken massive casualties here. But from the photographs I've seen, from the reporting I've seen, and the photos that are geolocated in these areas, Ukraine has taken huge casualties as well. I personally know at least 2 people who have been killed in this area and a few other missing. So that, and I don't know that many people, and it really has, both sides has been absolute meat grinder here. You can see on the southern side of Bakhmut here as well that Russia is having some success of pushing through and potentially in the coming weeks, months surrounding Bakhmut. Will this happen? Well, a lot of people thought that Soledar wouldn't fall either, and I think it was a bit of a hard pill to swallow because we've seen so many recent Ukrainian successes to see some Russian successes come through, because the last 4 or 5 months has been a lot of Ukraine success. And, this is going to swing both ways at times. And, we started seeing Russian success push through here, but they were pushing on this for months and months and months and have finally made that breakthrough. So I guess it might be a hard pill to swallow, but that is the truth. Soledar has fallen into the control of Russia, and everything's geolocated to back that up. Will we see Bakhmut fall? I think so. I think in the next coming weeks, month maybe, we will see it fall. It may be like Soledar. It may be, really slow, and then once it sort of goes, once that defense line is broken, it may collapse very quickly. As there has been a lot of new footage coming out of Bakhmut showing the absolute hellscape it was. I was there 4 or 5 months ago, and it was unbelievable then of how much attack was going on, and that still standing is unbelievable. But I believe that may fall. But in other regions of the country, we probably will start seeing some Ukrainian advances with the new equipment coming in from the West. I guess the main news that has come through over the last week is that Germany basically put the stops on the Leopard 2 vehicles that Poland said Leopard 2s are a main battle tank from Germany. And Poland has a few different types, but, Leopard 1s were mid-60s, Leopard 2s were mid-70s created. But then, of course, they have had multiple variants between now and then. And, they've had the 2A1, 2A2, 2A3, and I believe they're up to like 2A7, 2A8. And Poland has a few older types and older variants of these vehicles that they had, as well as some Soviet-era vehicles. And those Soviet-era vehicles have been transferred to Ukraine, months ago. But then these Western-made, Western main battle tanks, we've not yet seen tanks given to Ukraine. But Poland and Finland both said they would give their Leopard 2s. Problem with the Leopard 2s is they're a German-built tank. The licenses to build them and whatever is by Germany. And the export of these vehicles isn't as easy as it may seem. Australia has Abrams tanks from the United States. We could not just give Abrams to Ukraine no matter what we wanted, because those vehicles were made by America. The licensing is held in America. And at my understanding, Australia doesn't actually own its Abrams. They are rented long-term from the United States. And there are certain things, because of the composite armour and some of the secret stuff within it, that even Australia, who's arguably America's most trusted country, or maybe second or third, depending who you talk to, but right in that upper echelon of trust, still isn't given the full ability to work on and do everything on that vehicle, to my understanding of even our tanks. So Germany has turned around and basically stopped those tanks, the Leopard 2s being transferred, and said if the US transfers Abrams main battle tanks, then we will also consider giving the Leopard 2s, our locally produced main battle tank. And in my opinion, the odds of US transferring Abrams tanks is fairly low. And a lot of people today, there's been another $2.5 billion package given from the US today of infantry fighting vehicles, Strikers, M2 Bradleys, these infantry fighting type vehicles, not with the big cannon on the front. And part of that is not Abrams tanks. So if Germany hold their guns and stick to it and say we're not transferring them as the US does, it's a bit of a blame game. It is being able to, well, if you don't transfer them, we won't transfer them, and the blame can sort of get shifted. But I think it's important to know a lot of people are very critical on Germany for this. And, maybe rightfully so in some areas, but Germany is the third largest donor of money and equipment to Ukraine. Their GDP percentage they've given is fairly low. I believe they're 6 down 7, 8. I'll confirm that with something on the screen. But as far as what they've actually given is massive. And Germany do need to look after their export market of vehicles. Germany has a huge defence industry export as well. So I guess they're weighing up so many things. And these companies that build these are private companies. They will have a say in the government on this. So there's probably a lot more going on behind closed doors than what we are actually seeing. But when this was all coming up, and Germany's blaming these and people blaming that, everything's going on, the UK came through and was like, well, we'll give you the Challenger 2. And the UK is transferring, I believe, 12 or 14 Challenger 2 main battle tanks to Ukraine in the coming weeks. Challenger 2 is a very similar era tank to the Abrams, and in every aspect is just as good as a world-leading, world-class tank. There's actually been no Challenger 2 ever killed in combat except for one, but that one was actually a blue-on-blue incident where another Challenger 2 thought it was an enemy tank in Basra, I believe, and contacted and shot another tank, killing 2 of the 4 crew members. But although it's an absolute tragic incident, for a tank to be shot by another equivalent tank, the same tank, and 2 of the 4 crew die and not have a complete death is, I guess, is a credit to how well protected those tanks are. They're a big, heavy tank like the Abrams, and they will use a lot of fuel. I believe off-road they're somewhere like 0.06 miles per gallon, and on-road 1 mile per gallon. So they use a lot of fuel, a lot more than the smaller, lighter tanks, the Soviet-era tanks, as well as the Leopard 2s, which are a smaller, lighter tank. But this is a big thing, seeing these main battle tanks transferred. A lot of countries said they wouldn't do it, and they started to do it. And maybe Britain doing this, the UK doing this, will, get those cogs turning on the Abrams and the Leopards. I think Leopards eventually, there'll be so much EU pressure on Germany that I believe the Leopards you will see the Leopards go into Ukraine at some point, I believe. There were several NATO countries just today really announced another massive push of equipment into Ukraine. Everything from Stinger missiles, S-60 anti-aircraft guns, machine guns, and a lot of training to go with that, and the UK giving 600 more Brimstone missiles to Ukraine. These missiles have a range of about 12 miles. That's probably classified, but that's what Mr. Google's telling me. And from my time in the military, people say, well, a lot of tab data, which is like the specs on weapons, are classified, but you might find a lot of it online. And the UK training 20,000 members of the armed forces of Ukraine. Denmark has said it would donate 19 French-made Caesar howitzers, or an incredibly efficient howitzer artillery gun. We've seen them used a lot. Yes, we've seen some killed by Russian drones, but that is war. High-end equipment gets killed. Sweden has pledged to send the Archer artillery system, which is like a mobile howitzer, I guess similar to the French Caesar in many ways. Sweden, interestingly, has actually broken its own doctrine of, well, they said they would not deliver weapons to a country at war, but they're sending 50 CV-90 armoured vehicles and NLAW portable tank missiles. So the NLAW is actually made by Saab. You might know Saab. Saab is a Swedish car company to most people. Well, they also make a shitload of military equipment, including NLAW systems. So safest country in the world, or safest cars in the world versus and they all the way through to missile systems that are made to kill armored vehicles, as well as the Biden administration, another $2.5 billion to Ukraine will consist of 59 Bradley or M2 Bradley fighting vehicles, which we've already seen Ukrainians in those training. They're in Europe somewhere. We don't know if they've crossed the border into Ukraine or not. 90 Striker armored vehicles and 53 mine-resistant MRAP vehicles. Avenger air defense systems, anti-radiation missiles. Anti-radiation missiles are used to take out ground-based rocket systems, where anything where there's a big radar to hit planes or shoot missiles, whatever. The anti-radiation missiles do that. This was the concern early in the war, and what lifted the concern was we thought that Russia could get air dominance very quickly by anti-radiation missiles taking out all Ukraine's S-300 missile systems. Didn't quite work like that. They didn't get air superiority as quickly. Well, they still haven't got it, but people believe they'd have it very quickly due to those systems. The US will give more of their HIMARS system, the famous HIMARS systems, which have made a big turning point in this war. The HIMARS, and Ukraine didn't get that many of them. I believe the initial was 8, and then they got 12, 14 of these HIMARS, which you got to remember the US military is massive. A lot of people, including myself, we even don't grasp the full scale of how big the US military is. And these systems, America has heaps of these systems, and they're giving more across. So we've seen how much devastating effect a dozen of these systems have had towards Russia. And how many more America must have, so they're giving more of those on. Interestingly too, though, the US Defense Ministry has said that we will most likely start seeing Russia's most modern main battle tank, the T-14 Armata, come into power. And no one knows how this will actually perform, but they've said that it is a high-risk asset, but high risk as well for the Russians, because if it's in combat, we will know how it performs. We will see how it performs. A lot of the Russian strategy is flexing muscles, is we've got this, we've got that, and building that propaganda. But what we've seen with a lot of their stuff was just that. It was just propaganda. Now, the T-90 is still a very good tank. Is it unkillable like some things said? Absolutely not. We've seen them killed from everything from drones through to NLAW, man portable systems, everything. So we will see, and this is something that they were planning on exporting. And if it doesn't perform well, Russia's export market, which is a lot of their defense industry, it may fall over. But on the flip side, maybe the T-14 is a very high performing tank and could maybe shift things. Will tanks on any side, shape and change this war? No. That just won't be it. Nothing will turn the tides in this war. This war will play out however it's going to play out, and there will be a winner and a loser through a diplomatic solution. Why I say a diplomatic solution? Well, all wars have to be ended diplomatically. Now, when that decision is made, I don't know. Ukraine has said it won't do any sort of solution until Crimea and their border pre-2014 is finished, okay? And Russia has said that they are open to talks, although what does that really mean realistically? We also don't know. But all wars are ended diplomatically. Even when the US dropped 2 nuclear bombs on Japan, was it ended diplomatically? Yes, treaties are signed on ships out at sea. So that's just how it has to be. And speaking about Putin, Zelensky has, sort of in the World Economic Forum, has said that he's not entirely sure that that President Vladimir Putin is still alive. He said, I don't understand who to talk to about what. I'm not sure that Russia's president, who sometimes appears against chroma key, is really him, hinting at that, maybe President Putin is dead. Now, I think people have taken this literally, where I believe this was a bit of a joke of Zelensky saying, well, I'm here, I'm doing this, and he's hiding behind this at a big table with all these people. So it's hard to know. We've also seen, only over the last couple of days, defensive missile systems going on top of buildings in Moscow. Over the past, say, month, we have seen Ukraine drone attacks deep within Russian territory, at the Engels 2 Air Force Base being the most notable. That Air Force Base is home to all Russia's long-range strategic bombers. Bombers that can carry nuclear missiles, but bombers that typically are carrying these Kh-22 missiles, which we've seen devastating attacks over Ukraine. Not only attacks on infrastructure, but also attacks that has hit civilian infrastructure, whether on purpose or not, it doesn't really matter, that have taken down, infamously, I guess, the building in Dnipro, killing dozens of people, was from, I believe, one of these bombers. So why I bring this up is that base is about the equivalent distance from Ukraine into Russia as Moscow is. And there has to be some thought of, Ukraine could potentially strike us at Moscow. And these missile systems have popped up on several defense administrative buildings, mainly in downtown Moscow, being most notably the defense administrative building. Something else that came out today is that Meta is the company that owns Facebook, Instagram, bloody half the bloody world, have basically said the Azov regiment no longer meets the criteria for a dangerous organisation on Facebook, Instagram, whatever. The reporting on this through, since the war has started, has been, no one's really in the mainstream, or at least on a lot, have really talked about Azov in a bad light. But if you go pre the 24th of February, which is the day of the invasion, pre that, Vice and ABC and BBC and all this will have things about the neo-Nazis, the nationalists in Ukraine, and will most commonly refer to the Azov regiment. So, the media tech giant, the US tech giant, has, opened up and said, look, these guys don't pose a threat online, I guess, and are letting them back on. These same media giants, people will say, oh, they are and they aren't, and you can go back and forth on that wherever you want. But these same media giants, the one who let the fucking Taliban online and all these other systems. So, look, it's just a social media thing. Hopefully people see through it. But does the Azov regiment have roots and people in the belief that? Yeah, but so do a lot of other regiments down there in the world. Is it a lot more obvious than these? Yes, of course, it really is. And I won't deny that there are people that have this neo-Nazi nationalist mindset, and people I've talked to about this in those. I think, but a lot of people in the comments are pointing towards, well, so many of these guys were killed, it may have actually thinned out some of the sort of original guys that believed a lot of that. But I don't know. I don't really care about this decision either way. Social media. And I guess the one thing is, social media shows a lot of faults, and hopefully, for Ukraine's sake, for the sake of this, that, it is as it's being portrayed, and it's nowhere near as bad as some people say, and it doesn't end up shooting people in the foot and taking away a lot of support that regiment and that Ukraine have from the world at the moment. But I think that is a pretty good overview of about everything that's happened in the past couple of days, couple of weeks. There's a lot. There's so much that's happening, from main battle tanks, people talking shit in the World Economic Forum, everything, big releases of equipment. But look, so many of my videos are being demonetized at the moment because, people don't, I don't know, YouTube pay off views on videos, and it's seeming like they don't really like it when you're talking about Russia, Ukraine, and just demonetizing things. So if you want to support me, the link's below, my PayPal, Patreon, merch, whatever you'd like, as well as, just watching me actually does support me. So thank you very much. Have a great day. And I'm going to try and do more of these videos. So hopefully I'll see you in the next day or two. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate you listening, and I'll speak to you soon. Okay. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.